Welcome, everyone. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert, author, speaker, and podcast host. You're listening to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. More women than ever are faced with challenging decisions on a regular basis. I am so privileged to sit down with them to discuss exactly what they've gone through and how they've come out the other side, realizing their wildest dreams. I'm sure you'll be able to relate. And don't forget to stay to the end to take advantage of my latest free gift. Let's get started. Hello, you wildly courageous women, you. Welcome to the Wildly Courageous Women podcast. I'm Dana Peever, decision expert. And as always, we're here talking about decisions that have been made in our lives that were courageous or impactful or changed the course of our life, or even one that we maybe wish we could go back on. Each week, I join you twice, once with a guest and once solo. Today, I'll be sharing an impactful decision that I've made in my life. Since I've been studying the science of decision-making for over 30 years, the majority of my life's decisions have been made very intentionally using my 5-step Decision Smith system and app. I'll walk you through all my thoughts behind the scenes, but before we get started, I want to remind listeners to stay to the end to get access to my latest freebie. All right, we're going to take this step by step. And the decision that I'm going to share with you today lies in the reasons behind why I started the Wildly Courageous Women movement, and then ultimately this podcast. So let's back up a few months. Earlier this year, I actually started a 90-day challenge group with 20 women, and we were really focused on achieving new goals as we made good habits for ourselves. So each one of us in the group had different goals that they had set and different habits that they really wanted to reinforce over those 90 days that we were sharing our progress together. So, for example, I was looking at greater water intake and more exercise and really focusing on what I was eating, including less sugar and less alcohol in terms of what I was putting in my body. And we were sharing all of this information in the goal incubator group that I had created. Like I said, there were about 20 women. And it was great. People were expressing what they wanted to achieve, how they were doing. People were sharing pictures. Some people would have bad days and, feel poorly and, express that. And other people would, really lift them up and give them encouragement to keep going. And ultimately, it was a really great accountability group. But it became a really safe space, which was unexpected for me. A place where women knew, like, there was no judgment. And it was so refreshing. It was just a really nice, calm place to be yourself and share what you wanted to share and know that everybody had your back and nobody was going to point fingers at you. And I really relished the group and the interactions. And about the same time, I was looking at my decision making and, the work that I do, helping people to identify what decisions to make in their lives. And I was figuring out what I wanted my legacy to be around decision making. About the same time, I also scheduled a call, a recommendation from my good friend Angeline in California, with a marketing guru by the name of Mark Schaefer. He's written 8 or 9 books now, and he's known globally. So I scheduled an hour call with him and shared with him all of the assets that I'd created to date from a decision-making perspective, and all of the areas that I'd tapped into, all of the courses that I'd offered. Just, I gave him a laundry list of what I'd worked on, including my books and things like that. And one of the books that I read of his before that call was called Known. And it's really what to be known for, and then how to become known in that, whatever you've chosen. So that's what our call was focusing on, which was, determining what I wanted to be known for and what my legacy could be. So, I jumped on that call with him that day, and I laugh as I think about it, because he's a straight shooter and holds no bars. He told me outright that I wouldn't sell any courses because nobody knows who I am. And was that really fair? No, because people know who I am, but not, to the extent that he has, such a global following. Sure, I'll give him that. And then I, shared with him the titles of my most recent bestsellers. So the first one, The Decision to Purge, the year the skeletons fell out of the closet. And then it had just been a few weeks prior that I had published The Decision to Live, the year she wiped the fog off the mirror. And he said to me, he goes, "What kind of title is that? Like, what does it even mean? I don't understand." And I had to laugh. And I said, "Mark," I said, "it's obvious you're not my target market, because anytime I mention that to a woman, they get exactly what I mean by that title." So, we had a little bit of a chuckle about that, but he was really, straightforward about what I had done that was going to be successful and what he felt wasn't. And so we talked some more, and I told him that, my entire focus with my decision making and, the coaches and mentors I've had in the past, they all pointed me in the direction of corporate, because that's where the money was. Corporations would pay for me to do courses for people, their employees, to, be better decision makers. That's where the money was. And so, I'd spent a lot of time focused in that area, but it didn't always feel congruent with who I am as a person. My day career in HR has always had me training and teaching and that type of thing. And I didn't want to continue doing my decision-making side of things from a corporate perspective, because I lived that life during the day. And I truly thought I could best serve an audience, one person at a time. And it was really a struggle for me all those years, because of the fact that I had been told that I should be focused on corporate, but my heart really lay in helping women just like me lead more fulfilling lives. And he said something at that point in time that was really impactful. He said, "What are the titles of your books again?" And I told him. And he said, "Who do they cater to?" And I said, they really cater to the midlife woman, because, I've written them and they appeal to an audience similar to my age. But at the same time, I want to be able to teach young women how to make really good decisions early on in their life, so that the rest of their life they feel the impact of the great decisions that they've made. So really, the span of age that I cater to really starts, in your teens, and I have clients in their 70s and 80s. So there was a real scope. So at that point in time, as we continued our conversation, he said to me, he said, Dana, from what I hear talking to you, I feel like you help give women the courage. You help them be brave in their decision making. And that's what you should be known for, helping those women um, learn what it takes to make a tough decision, both quickly and confidently, so you feel so perfectly at ease and confident in the decision that you've made. And every tough decision that a woman is faced with, it takes bravery and courage to work through all the factors that you're taking into consideration, and weighing everything against each other. It takes real bravery. It takes real courage. And ultimately, once you make those decisions, it takes another level of bravery and courage to carry through with them. You can make a decision, but it doesn't mean you're acting on it. So, a lot of the bravery and courage comes in once you put your decision into action. So that's, the message he shared with me. And he said, does that make sense? Does that, resound at all with you? And I said to him, I said, I feel almost like I've come full circle. Because when I got my life coaching certification, gosh, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago. I can't even remember. When I first created my website around that, I talked about my secret sauce and how I was able to make good decisions that provided for a really fantastic life. So here I was coming back full circle after all this time, really feeling like I was back in my my authentic and true self, and it felt so good. And at the same time, I had attended an online webinar over the course of a couple of days, and their theme song was brave, and that word was just resounding so strongly over and over in my head. And also during that webinar, I learned how much I'm typically in the masculine. I'm a Virgo. I'm very detail oriented. I'm very formulated. I'm a planner. Everything has a template or a foundation or a box, and it's very systematic. And, we can write it down on paper and lists and things like that. And that becomes very masculine. And I wasn't allowing myself to sit in my feminine much. And, all of those conversations that week really helped showcase how much more in tune I was with my feminine side. I just didn't act that way. And I needed to start making sure that there was a balance between the two. So I'm not going to stop, creating my plans and my systems and my strategies and things like that. But I really needed to also, be authentic in my message and really share my vulnerabilities and the things that, I face that aren't necessarily all roses, and really be, true to the stories I was sharing. So that's where the idea for this new community came about. And the naming was certainly an exercise that was interesting for me. I feel like I have the piece of paper here. Again, lists. I don't know if you can see this, but we're not getting very close, but piece of paper here with all sorts of words on it, different adjectives, a whole exercise to really identify what I could call this group that would be meaningful and impactful. And originally, the group was going to be called Brave the Chaos, Brave the Chaos, and had a logo and everything. And then I had some conversations around that with a few people who, said that your group needs to be something that women identify with. Brave the Chaos, everybody knows what it is, but do they identify with it? Not necessarily. And that's when Wildly Courageous Women really came about. And it was something that, I feel I am. And I feel like there are more women out there who actually are wildly courageous, but don't give themselves credit for that. So that's where we decided to create this community, Wildly Courageous Women. And, had a logo made that I love. It just really embodies what we are with, the lotus and the flame and the profile and the colors. It's interesting. I had some tank tops made recently and with the logo on them, and I love them so much. So it's really sitting well with me. And it was an evolution. Like, this didn't happen overnight. That conversation happened back in the beginning of March. And things are still percolating in terms of where we're headed. But my podcast started the middle of May. So, 2 months later, this community had been born and we were acting on it. And the reason the podcast came about was twofold. I wanted to be able to, get in front of different audiences, and we felt using a podcast would help showcase that. But what I learned in doing my, first couple of interviews was that I was talking to these women who had made courageous decisions in their lives, but they never acknowledged the courage or the bravery that it took for them to make those decisions and, like I say, act on them. The women that I typically wind up talking to during these podcasts are ones that just feel like, well, this is what was thrown in front of me, and this is what I needed to do. It didn't take courage, it didn't take bravery, it was what needed to be done. But truly, their decisions have taken courage and have taken bravery. And they can be, big, onerous decisions. They can just be small, little, seemingly insignificant decisions. But if they're changing a fundamental part of you or the way you are, it's a big decision. And it's taken courage to be able to stand up for what you believe in and move forward in a manner that you are ultimately going to be judged on by somebody. I don't think we make a decision in our lives that we aren't judged on to some extent. And I think that's why the use of my 5-step decision Smith system is so impactful, especially in a situation where you feel you might ultimately be judged once you tell people what your decision is. Because in going through the system, you have, turned over every stone. You've uncovered every single bit of information that you have needed to be able to make this decision. You've incorporated all sorts of different factors. You've even taken into consideration how your family or spouse might feel about the decision, if that's pertinent to the decision that's being made. You get to incorporate all those little pieces, and then you're weighing them and scoring them. And once you do all that, if you've been honest through the process, and I really stress that honesty, because you might as well not follow the process if you haven't been honest all the way through. But if you're honest, the score and the percentage that you get at the end does not lie. It doesn't lie. It can't, because that's the information you've fed it. So it's only spitting out a mirror image, based on algorithms of what you put in. So even if somebody were to judge you, if you felt you had to defend yourself, you wholeheartedly could. But I think one of the things I found as I became more and more adept at decision making was that my decisions started speaking for themselves. And at the beginning, people would question when I made some, way out there decisions. But ultimately, with my track record, they saw that those decisions were the best decisions for me. And they stopped judging me for it. Not altogether and not everybody, but the noise certainly died down. And I think, it's a state of being that not everybody even understands can exist, or if they do, they don't know how to get there. And that's one of the things that I love working with and sharing with women. So the Wildly Courageous Women community was really created to give women a safe space to talk to each other, to ask questions, to share, difficulties that they're being faced with, decisions that they have to make, and to help them work through that process confidently and to come out the other side with a complete knowledge of how to move forward. And that's why I created the community. And as for the podcast, like I mentioned, I was talking to women who had made those decisions and didn't realize how much bravery and courage it took to make them. So even though the podcast is, not been around for long, I already love the fact that I get to celebrate these women from the rooftops and, just share with the world how courageous and brave they've been in tackling their lives one brave decision at a time. So it's been an incredible journey so far, and it's only just beginning. And, if you are ever interested in finding out more about the community, please let me know. If you're interested in sharing a story of a tough decision that you've made here with me on my podcast, I would love to have you as a guest. Please get in touch. All right. So to all of our listeners out there today, thank you so much for joining me. And if you're ready to realize your wildest dreams, come and join us in the Wildly Courageous Women Facebook group, where we're changing people's lives one brave decision at a time. I'm Dana Peever. Until next time, make great decisions and do life fun. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wildly Courageous Women. Keep listening to hear more stories of these incredible women realizing their wildest dreams. If you have a story to tell about a decision that you've made that has impacted your life, I'd love to feature you as a guest. Please get in touch, and don't forget to grab my latest gift by clicking below. I'm Dana Peever. As always, make great decisions and do life fun.